Hey guys, and welcome back for a new installment of NTom and Volk's Spot of PC, and I have to say I'm quite excited to cover today's game because I've heard a lot of buzz about this title in particular. It is, of course, Enter the Gungeon.
Oh, I've had a ton of fun with this game. Ever since it came out, I'm just like, oh, we gotta cover this game on Spot of PC, and it's just like, we need to do it sooner rather than later, so we're doing it now.
Developed by Dodge Roll, published by Devolver Digital, came out for Microsoft Windows, OS X, Linux, PS4. Worldwide release date was April 5th, 2016. It is a bullet hell / roguelike game with single player and multiplayer aspects, and you've gotta let me read the plot for this. It's amazing.
Go right on ahead.
Alright, in Enter the Gungeon, reading this directly from Wikipedia, on a distant planet inherited by living bullets, a legendary gun which can kill the past was held in a grim fortress until a deadly force tore the fortress down and brought it to ashes. After the fortress was rebuilt, although with the highest security measures, four adventurers, each with their own stories and regrets, decide to travel to the planet, enter the fortress and descend into the Gungeon, seeking for the legendary gun to defeat their own past and turn their life to the better.
And also The Hills Have Eyes a la Super Mario, but we'll ignore that brief fact. But yes, that is pretty much the plot. It sounds completely ridiculous, but that's where part of the fun comes in.
A legendary gun that can kill the past.
Well, if you had the option to do so, I'm sure there's part of the past that you would want to kill. But I'm fairly content with my past, so I don't think I'd enter the Gungeon to do that. It sounds like too much hard work for very little payoff.
I think what attracted me to the game first and foremost is just the name. Enter the Gungeon. What a classy indie-esque sort of like game title, you know?
I mean, it's just one of the many gun-based puns that fill this game, so expect tons more where that came from.
Usually I kind of like roll my eyes at this like pixel art sort of thing because it's so prevalent nowadays, but I'm gonna give it a chance because, you know, I liked what I saw in certain other indie games with this particular art style, so talk us through Enter the Gungeon, mate.
So when you get into the game, you are greeted by a hub world known as the Breach, where you can select your character, which is between the Marine, the Pilot, the Convict, and the Hunter, who has a corgi, which is the most awesome thing ever. So obviously we're probably going to pick the Hunter for this, because who would not want a faithful dog companion to follow them around whilst you're entering the Gungeon? So the hub world itself is home to many a different NPC. The room on the left is where you generally begin your journey through the tutorial, and as you progress through the game you will find more characters in the Gungeon, and they will come back to the Breach and you'll be able to do various things like interact with them or use their special shops to purchase unlocks that will give you more guns and more items to take with you as you progress down.
I have to say, you know, I went on that mini spiel that, oh, pixel art, so played out, but it actually does kind of look nice with the whole lighting and shading they've got going on here.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, pixel art, yes, it is a little bit overused recently, but as long as pixel art is done right,
yeah,
it's incredibly good. I think Gungeon did it right. You got Steridon, which is another very recent pixel art game, but did it very right. And there's another game whose name escapes me, but that one did pixel art really, really well as well. And that was another very recent game.
Shovel Knight?
Shovel Knight, I suppose, could qualify, but I am thinking of... Oh, Hyper Light Drifter, that was it. So now we're now officially in the Gungeon, and as you can tell, there are a whole manner of very deadly and ridiculous-looking enemies in which you have to dispatch.
Were those ghosts holding guns?
Yep, that is a ghost with an AK-47.
Okay, I'm just rolling with it. I love madness, you know?
So yeah, you got the tough nut, I suppose.
Oh, even the guy with the sword launches projectiles. I love it.
Yep. And of course, one of the most common enemies you'll find is, of course, bullets holding guns, which fire more bullets.
Huh?
Yeah, try not to think about it too much. When they say living bullets, they mean it literally.
No, I know you like use some bullet hell. Like, Isaac, I believe. Binding of Isaac had a little bit of that going on.
This game is very, very heavily influenced by Binding of Isaac, but It does borrow some influences as well from Nuclear Throne, which is also very similar, and it also borrows from Spelunky, Dark Souls with the whole dodge rolling mechanic, I suppose, and also Metal Gear Solid was apparently a pretty minor influence, but an influence nonetheless.
I'm kind of digging how you knock over scenery to use as like cover.
Yep, I tried to take this barrel with me, but somehow it got stuck. I guess it was stuck behind one of the barrels. But yeah, you can find exploding barrels and things like that. You can sort of push towards the enemy and then blow them up. So you are encouraged to use the scenery as well to your advantage.
So we start off, when you're the hunter that is, with the crossbow. Can you get any new guns?
Oh yeah, you generally speaking, you can unlock at least a couple of guns that you can pick up. One of the things you can pick up in the game is treasure chests that kind of act as item rooms in Binding of Isaac. But the problem is you need a key to unlock them, so whilst you have 2 chests, you don't always want to immediately open the first one you find. You kind of want to explore a bit and see how many keys you have and the quality of the chests and so forth. They can range from brown to blue to green to red, and then finally the black chest, which houses the most powerful and deadly guns known to man.
Sorry, I don't mean to chuckle over your actual factual commentary. It was just there was like a fucking shotgun pellet with bat wings.
Yep, you do also get grenade versions of those as well. They can be quite deadly. One of the things I really love about this game is that backtracking is way easier because you can find teleporty paths which actually take you back to places you've previously visited. So the whole backtracking thing, which was fairly annoying in the likes of Binding of Isaac, is now made a lot more manageable and fun with Enter the Gungeon. There you go, those are the grenade bats that I was telling you about earlier.
So what function does the corgi serve to the hunter?
On rare occasions, after you clear a room, he can dig up an item for you, and this can be health blanks, which kind of act as a bullet bomb from popular bullet hells like Toho and things like that. So if you're in trouble and there's a lot of bullets on the screen, you can use it to clear it.
Nice.
Actually, one of the first things I thought was when I came across those shotgun pellet guys, it's just like Marge Simpson.
Yeah.
Just like the massive blue hair of a shotgun. And some of these rooms can get very, very tricky. You can just get completely swarmed by enemies.
Well, it's called Bullet Hell, not Bullet Heaven, mate, I guess.
Yeah, that is true, that's true. There's the boss room. We'll be going back there later. For now, there is more rooms and loot to procure.
Oh, yeah. So tell me about your first experiences with Enter the Gungeon, mate.
Death. Lots and lots of death.
Ah, yes, I see.
It's not an easy game by any stretch. It is incredibly difficult. Like, I've played this game for maybe 20, 30 hours at this point, and I still haven't even seen an ending. I've seen the 5th floor and the 5th floor the 5th floor boss, but I haven't seen the final floor or the final boss yet. So if you're looking for more of a challenge than, say, you may have gotten from Binding of Isaac, then this game may well be your cup of tea, but it is not for the faint of heart.
Oh, crystal shooty gun!
Yeah, I haven't actually seen this gun before when I actually got it. And that should say something about the sheer amount of items and guns in this game. Like, even after 30 hours of gameplay, I'm still finding things I've never seen before.
Here's an important question. Are there, like, guns based on, like, certain other indie characters?
Not just indie, but also very much mainstream as well. You can find guns based on Halo, Metal Gear Solid, Mega Man.
Nice.
You can even find Mega Man's Buster.
Yes, that's exactly what I wanted.
And there's also, like, Vega references as well. Or maybe, borrowed themes or something like that. But there are a lot of references in this game to other games featuring guns, let's just say. So, as well as the prism gun, we have also picked up this here triple crossbow, which isn't exactly what it says on the tin. Yes, it can shoot 3 bolts before needing to reload, but it also switches between 3 different firing modes after you reload.
Yeah, so I can't let this pass. Potion of Gun Friendship, +1 to gun.
Yes, +1 to gun is literally, it increases your gun proficiency by +1, so it reloads faster, the bullets are bigger, they do more damage. Pretty much everything you expect from something that gives +1.
Oh my god. Oh, is this a Vulcan Raven reference?
It could well be.
Just shoot grenades at me. Rapid fire Raptor Gatling gun, yes! I don't think I've been this hyped for a Spot PC episode before.
Yeah, this is a very, very heavy Metal Gear Solid reference if you can't already guess. This is GATLING GULL, one of 3 first bosses you can actually encounter in Enter the Gungeon. There are 2 more, but I won't spoil who they are in case you want to kind of play this game for yourself. They're much better if you're genuinely surprised by what they come up with. But they are all either reference-based or they are a pun to something gun-based.
See, again, going back to the whole, pixel art is kind of overused, there's another thing in, like, indie games I've noticed recently, which is throwing in cameos from other indie games, like, either subtly or, like, outright with that whole Indivisible thing. You know, they have, like, Shantae, they have Shovel Knight, and I guess that's cool, but it does also kind of come off, like, when the game's not even out yet, like, oh, we're using this to advertise our game, you like these guys, don't you? And yes, I understand that's a very cynical way of looking at things, but it just kind of irks me a little bit, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of why I like Gungeon, because they do it in a way that makes sense. Like, it doesn't try to oversell it or anything like that. It literally says, oh yeah, this is a gun from this, make a vague reference to it, but that's pretty much it.
So how exactly are you controlling the game? Is it via the mouse?
Yeah, there is mouse and keyboard control as well as joypad support.
Ah, dual stick.
Yep.
Nice.
So now we've actually entered the Gungeon as a different character, because I did 2 separate runs and kind of spliced them together a bit. So now we're playing as the Marine, because I figured, well, since the new Doom game came out recently, I figured it would be a good way to go. And during our first floor encounter, we picked up a toxic t-shirt cannon.
Okay, I guess.
And we also got the bee gun, which is literally just a beehive, and you just shoot bees at people. It's pretty damn amazing. So there's 6 different floors in the game, much like there are 6 chambers in a gun, traditionally.
Okay. Wow.
So yes, even the level count is a direct pun or reference to a gun.
I'm kind of falling in love with this game, mate, I'm gonna be honest.
It was pretty much love at first sight for me, because of course, you know, perhaps, personally, how much I like Binding of Isaac.
Oh, yeah.
You know, this game with its clever use of imagery and aesthetics, as well as just being just balmy, just really, really spoke out to me.
I think one of the things I like most from what I've seen so far, apart from like the gun variety and just the whole like charm of the game aesthetic-wise, is that I always find bullet hells to be a little bit restrictive. Like, granted, that's totally my fault for being bad at the genre, but with like the ability to, shut down bullet waves sometimes and like dodge roll out of the way, it seems a little bit more accessible, but not in a way that sort of like degrades the difficulty factor of the game.
Yeah, one common thing I hear about Binding of Isaac in terms of complaints is that it's very much dependent on like what items you find. Like sometimes a room could be ruined just because you didn't find a certain item, or maybe whatever you picked up wasn't very good.
Yeah.
And whilst there's still maybe a little bit more of that in Enter the Gungeon, it does reward skill ever so much more. Like with the whole dodge roll thing, you could, in theory, complete the game with just the basic gun, just as long as you knew what to dodge and when. And this is one of the many characters you can find in your progress through the Gungeon. You can find this adventurer who looks very much like a certain Legend of Zelda character. And basically he will ask you to map out the floor he's on for him. And if you happen to do it, he will actually give you an item.
I love shit like that. Like in Xenoblade, for example, you explore, you find new areas, you get EXP. Now you're encouraged to explore because you're going to get something out of it.
Exactly. And it doesn't always pop up either. Like, sometimes you can find a cursed shop where you can sell your soul and a little bit of coin for a very much discounted weapon, for instance. Or you may find a shooting gallery where if you manage to shoot the things flawlessly, you might get a very, very good item out of it. There's all sorts of different rooms outside of the normal 2 treasure room and a shop layout that you can find as you progress through the game.
I like what's happening here, using a melee weapon as like a ranged weapon.
Oh yeah, that is your fiery pitchfork. Another nice thing about that particular weapon is that you don't have to reload it either, so you can just sort of let loose and just fire for as long as you actually have ammo for it. And yes, there are sniper bullets as well.
Of course, why wouldn't there be?
And this is where I think, okay, this guy is probably immune to fire, considering, so I break out the t-shirt cannon again and poison him to death. Because, the best way to take care of a living flame is to throw a poisoned t-shirt at it.
Oh, of course. Man, this just seems like so fluid and fast. It's like very rarely a moment of like boring downtime.
Oh yeah, I mean, the fact that you can backtrack very easily does help with that, to get you back into the action almost immediately. Like, exploring back to a room you found previously isn't a tedious headache, it's a point and a click away, it's brilliant. Yes, they can also be taken out by traps and bottomless pits as well, so if you have a gun with a lot of knockback and you're facing a pretty powerful enemy, you can literally knock him back into a pit or into a trap and disperse him that way.
Although, on the other hand, I did notice some of the bullet enemies earlier knocking over cover themselves.
Oh yeah, the enemies use that to their advantage just as much as you might. So, I find that to be a very, very clever thing as well. Like, even your basic enemy, if you're not careful, can do all sorts of tricksy things, like pushing over a table or something like that to give themselves cover.
I'm noticing, just looking at the Wikipedia article, that Enter the Gungeon scored pretty fairly well. Like, it's got a Metacritic score thus far of 84 out of 100 for the PC version, 83 out of 100 for the PS4, it got 9 out of 5 from Destructoid, 9 out of 10 EGM, IGN gave it 8.5 out of 10, PC Gamer US 78 out of 100, 4.5 out of 5 for Hardcore Gamer, so it must have struck a chord.
Oh yeah, it is very much a solid game. Like, the only complaints that I see commonly is that perhaps the game can be seen as a little bit too challenging to some people, but apart from that, the only other thing that's usually said is that it does suffer a little bit from that RNG. A little bit, but nothing compared to, say, Binding of Isaac.
The escapist Joshua Vanderwall gave the game 3.5 out of 5 stars, criticising that the difficulty often comes from the game refusing to provide you the necessary tools, which, ironically, is something that you said Isaac got criticised for.
Yep, exactly. And as I say as well, it's not as much of a problem here because it is slightly more skill-based. As long as you can play the game well, you can get by with very little. And there we go, we mapped out the thing, so now we got the Betrayer's Shield, which is essentially a machine gun for shield on it.
Nice.
Can be very, very handy, although we've got quite a few weapons, and there is a certain Amulet of the Pit Lord there I quite like the look of, so this is where I can introduce the selling mechanic. Occasionally when you find a shop, you'll find this green blob in the grate here, and he wants your items, and you can sell him all of your passive and your guns, and he'll give you a little bit of moolah to get you by. And you can use that to buy whatever the hell you fancy.
Nice. No fall damage. Ah.
So now when you fall into a pit, it won't actually do any damage to you.
Tripping the light, fantastic.
Yes, this is a gun that is essentially a laser rifle that can turn enemies into chickens.
Ratchet and Clank much?
Yeah, a little bit, but you can't do it to bosses. So it's kind of just a very, very cool looking laser gun, basically. And now we come across our second boss, the BEHOLSTER.
Ah, I get it.
He has many guns and a big-ass eye, so we're just going to throw bees at him until he dies.
That is a fucking enemy from Ultima, I believe, the Beholder.
The Beholder is actually a pretty common enemy in sort of your fantasy RPG type stuff, like in D&D and things like that. Your general Beholder is featured in many different ways, and in some ways is somewhat inspired, like, say, the Caco Demon from Doom, for instance.
Oh, yeah.
So his spiel is that he fires lots of bullets and has this big-ass laser that he fires from his eye. So if you go dodge that, and you can dodge his homing missiles, you should have a pretty easy time with this guy.
Wow, you wrecked him.
Oh yeah, the bees do a lot of damage against bosses.
Not the bees! Ah!
Actually, there are a couple of bee-related items in this game, and one of them is also the Stinger missile, which is literally a rocket launcher that fires a beehive, which then spawns many bees.
What's the point of hitting harder but less often?
It allows you to be a bit more accurate with your shots, like sometimes with the multi-firing weapons.
Oh,
they tend to be a bit inaccurate. So if you have like a laser-based weapon, or a weapon that maybe shoots once or twice and then reloads, generally those weapons are more accurate. So with things like the eye patch, they are greatly enhanced because you're not relying so much on the accuracy being down at that point. You're just kind of, oh, you reduced the accuracy of my laser gun, which is literally not something that can divert off the beaten path. So, therefore, it's just a solid power-up.
Okay.
So, this is floor 3 that we're on at the moment. And floor 3 does present you with some very unique rooms. Once you get to floor 2, you can start finding these items to create the so-called gun that can kill the past. And in floor 2, it was an item that you can buy, but it's very, very expensive. And in floors 3, 4, and 5, there are actually special rooms that you can get access to, which contain the next part of the gun. So there's a little bit of exploration thrown in there as well that kind of encourages over multiple playthroughs to try and actively collect these pieces. And you may think that, oh, what? You mean you gotta collect specific items on a certain floor and get them to a certain point without dying? It's not entirely like that. As long as you can collect maybe 1 or 2 and take them to the right place, those items will be there and they will stay there.
Nice.
So you're not quite inclined to try and do the whole lot without dying. You can get like 1 or 2 items and then, you know, that's those out the way. You can focus on the other 2, for instance. So now I'm going to demonstrate the hex gun a bit. And as you can see, with the eye patch, it doesn't affect our accuracy any, but we're pretty much one-hitting things and turning things into chickens that survive.
So it grants you, like, critical hits more often, but...
I wouldn't say critical hits, more just a straight-up power boost.
Okay, well, thank you for relieving me of responsibility for that, because I did not know where that sentence was going.
No, that's fine. But yeah, obviously there's tons more weapons that you can get. And some of them range from being incredibly powerful to extremely gimmicky. Like, there is a machine gun that literally fires the word bullet. And you may find something like a gun that also doubles as a lightsaber, for instance, that can actually deflect bullets back at your enemy.
That's rad, though.
Oh yeah, it's very, very rad. And usually if you get that home, you're in a pretty good position. But you do get cursed for picking it up, so you'll have to be a little bit more careful, because cursing yourself isn't necessarily a good thing.
Well, closing the title, really.
Yeah, true that, but the reason why is because curse gives you a higher chance of finding, I guess the closest thing would be the Binding of Isaac champion enemies, except in this part they're called jammed enemies, and they are obscenely more powerful and have a lot more health.
Well, it's jamming your gun, so...
Yep, true that. So there we go, we refilled our beehive again, ready for the next boss encounter, I'm sure. So as you find more weapons, sometimes you'll get weapons that just work. Like you'll find certain synergies that just allow you to plow through a couple of floors. But then when you get to floors 4 and 5, suddenly you're feeling a little bit vulnerable, so to speak.
Yeah, a little bit exposed.
Yeah, the enemies do get quite a bit tougher as you progress.
Here's a random question. What's one of your favourite type of real-life guns?
Favorite type of real-life gun? That's not something I really think about. In all honesty.
Anything with a rapid-fire function for me, like an Uzi.
I guess I'm pretty much the same, but I am a bit of a sucker for like the grenade launcher and the rocket launcher type of fare.
Alright, well, let's kick it up a notch. How about video game weapons?
Oh, video game weapons. I guess I gotta go with the classic approach and say maybe the BFG from Doom.
Oh yeah, that's the good stuff.
Either that or probably something like the Redeemer from Unreal Tournament.
I like the Clob from GoldenEye.
Oh yeah, that's pretty good too. And the Moonraker laser.
Uh-huh.
There's quite a lot you can choose from. But actually I can say one of my favourite weapons here is actually the Alien Engine, which is literally just like a spaceship turbine, and as well as being an obscenely powerful close-range weapon, you also get pushed back ridiculously far, so you can actually use it to actually get to places faster. Just by firing it behind you and just pressing the opposite direction, you go flying. It's very, very fun, but very unstable to control.
I like how there's slight platforming elements in this, as well as, like, you know, alongside the bullet hell stuff.
Oh yeah, you do get the odd room that kind of encourages platforming.
Nervous yet?
Ah, the Vertebrake. That is a pretty damn powerful weapon. And this is an example of one of the extra shops you can find, which is literally a lock with what I am assuming is a turban, and he will sell you various key and chest-related items. So you might find a ring that stops mimics from attacking you, for instance. And generally, instead of money, they'll cost keys. So this is one of the special rooms that you find, which contain one of the many components to make the gun that can kill the past.
Stop saying that, Jesus.
I can't help it. It's literally what it's called. I can't really say it any other way.
This is so Zelda it hurts.
Yep, the invisible minecart. And you gotta use your dodge roll to travel between them and eventually get to the end. Now, luckily you don't have to do the same thing on the way back. There is actually a very conveniently placed minecart that will just take you straight back to where you were.
Now, that's accessible game design.
Oh yes, there's no reason to do the same thing twice if you've already done it once.
Da-da-da-da!
The arcane gunpowder from the deep. Well, where else is it going to come from?
Exactly, it's not going to come from the above, is it?
No, this is indeed true. So I think we've pretty much explored everything on this floor, so I guess the only thing left to do is maybe pick up another chest or go see the boss. And what manner of boss will we face this time? Do you want to take a guess?
I hope it's a gun. I have no idea, mate. Gungeon is just blowing my mind right now. Alright, the smoke. It's a giant skull.
It is CANNONBALROG.
Okay.
So it is essentially a giant cannonball.
Okay.
And he hurts.
Oh
quite a
my
lot.
god, he's using the spiral effect.
That's alright, we got bees. We got bees for days.
Oh, the anti-Nick Cage repellent.
But seriously, the bee gun was so handy and I was so glad I picked it up.
So, we're coming to the end of this anniversary episode of NTom and Volk Spot of PC, and it's been a pretty joyous ride thus far. How has your experience been, mate?
It has been absolutely amazing. It's great to just be able to show off games that perhaps wouldn't normally be covered on the channel and give them a little bit of a spotlight and perhaps show you some things that you perhaps never would have seen before.
As for me myself, I kind of quickly devolved into the passive guy, like, oh, this is great, teach me about this, but again, I didn't grow up with PC games. I've always been more of a console gamer. But at the same time, I like to learn about different branches of video game history and, you know, present stuff as well. So that has been one of the most enjoyable parts about this. And thank you for joining up with me and helping to get this series going, mate.
No problem at all. Hopefully we'll get more where this came from. But yes, Gungeon, buy it. It's very, very good.
Enter the Gungeon out now. Get it, love it, buy.